With more and more people wanting to explore self-employment, it is more important than ever to discern between what's a good reason to start a business and a bad reason to start a business. Time to think like an investor. So today I want to share with you guys a story that was very instrumental in my development, honestly, as a young adult and as a person in general. And where do I even begin? My best friend growing up, very special person, still very close to this day. We, for some odd reason, like back when we were teenagers or like even pre-teenagers, had this weird common desire with one another that we wanted to be successful. We wanted to be significant. We wanted to like have a reputation of being someone who did something and make an impact on the world. And I don't know what that is. Maybe that's just being a young boy who's striving for attention. I don't know. But we both had it. And our thought was, why don't we start a company? Why don't we start a business? That's probably the one way we can really impact the world, because we were starting to see people like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world come up and all these different people creating really cool things. So we started throwing crap at the wall, random businesses ideas that we thought might work, just to see what would stick. And if you haven't already, I have a video on my channel talking about my worst business failures, all the flops that never really went anywhere, that eventually led to me starting a wealth management firm that kind of worked, or at least to this point in time has survived. But anyways, you can go check that out if you want. A lot of these businesses, like I said, went absolutely nowhere, but some of them started to do okay and we started to learn. But one thing became very apparent, more so in retrospect than early on, which was the fact that I was always very excited about the money or the lifestyle that being a business owner could provide me. And my friend was always very interested in how he could create a great experience for a user or a customer. And I was more excited about, what would it be like to have CEO behind my name and to be known as an entrepreneur? And he was more so excited about what would it be like to have a user that loves using my product or my company. And that's something really interesting, because the way this story ends is that we actually kind of end up parting ways. We weren't great partners for each other. We're still great friends. He ended up working with another friend in a different business, and I went to start a wealth management company. And the funny thing is that he actually ended up creating a business probably about 50 times the size of mine in a much smaller period of time. And it's not as if the whole goal here is to compare who's more successful. I mean, in a financial perspective, clearly him, obviously. But that's the thing I had to really learn and come to grapple with, is that, he was living the lifestyle where he had this massive company and it was all working out and he was taking these great vacations and private jets and dream cars. And I was kind of jealous of all those things that he had that I wish I would have had. And I started to beat myself up and think, where did I go wrong? We both had the same thoughts growing up. We were both trying the same things. He went massively successful and I kind of became marginally successful. So the whole idea here that strikes me is that intention matters. The reason behind why you're doing something is instrumental in the outcome. For instance, starting a business. What I've come to realize is that a lot of the time, the failure of a company actually has a lot to do with the intentions of the founder. Not totally to do with it, but has a lot to do with the motivations or the incentives that the founder really had in starting that business in the first place. Through all of these past experiences of building businesses that mostly all failed and then one that did sort of well at the end of the day, allowed me to kind of start discerning between, okay, what things went really right when it went right and what things led us down a horrible path that turned a business into a failure. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, having gone through that experience and working with clients all the time who start their own businesses and learning from them and talking with them. What are the ways or what are the right motivations behind successful business founders? And what are the reasons that businesses tend to fail even just from the start with the intentions behind them? The first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is people who go into business purely, like me back in the day, because they want the status or the reputation of being a successful entrepreneur. It's interesting because with these rise of all these different tech companies getting funding and going public and these overnight billionaires and these massive success stories, people have started to attribute founder or CEO or all these things of a company with this very high status, with this reputational element that just kind of puts them above the law or makes them a very special person. If that's the reason you're getting into a business, I don't believe that is enough of a pure and authentic motivation to actually fuel you and to actually keep you motivated while you're trying to build a venture, because it takes time and there's a lot of roadblocks you're gonna run into. I would leave the whole reputation motivation side of things for starting a company to the people who sell real estate investing seminars and people who run motivational Instagram pages about business, like Rise and Grind, this money never sleeps, and they have a big picture of the Monopoly man over top of their bed. Leave it for those people. If you want to start a business that succeeds, my view is that there's no way that the reputation or the status element is enough of a motivator to actually build something real. A massive detriment to a founder trying to start a business that I have personally lived through is thinking about the money that it could make you as the foremost motivation. So a lot of the time I'd be starting a new company or have this new idea, and I'd start running the numbers immediately. How long or how many customers would I need, or how successful would this have to be to live life like a millionaire, to have my dream car, to have my dream lifestyle? That was, I got emotional about the money and the success that could come. It was like counting all the eggs before they had hatched. Because what I found after doing this over and over and failing all the time is that as bad of a rap as like capitalists and very wealthy founders get for being self-centered and selfish and profit motivated, it really hits you pretty clearly in your journey as an entrepreneur that you have to be selfless and almost care more about providing values for others than your own feelings and emotions towards your company. If at the end of the day, no one wants to use your product and you're not making anybody's life better, the business doesn't carry on, it dies, right? So you have to be much more selfless than you'd think. And I think that's one of the reasons over time that I was able to build a more successful business, because I kept hitting the brick wall over and over of trying to build a business that made me happy as opposed to making the end user happy like my friend did. Also, one of the biggest misconceptions is that, well, the people who run their own business, they get to they create their own schedule. They don't have to follow the 9 to 5. They don't have to work ridiculous hours and be chained to their desk all day long. They have complete freedom, right? In my experience starting different companies and failing with most of them, I think that's completely the wrong motivation. That can't be the reason. And the reason is that in the right business that I started that went well, what I found is I actually doubled my workload in the first 5 years so that later on in life I could have more freedom. But I didn't even touch a semblance of freedom until at least the 6th year in my business. So if the main motivation going into it is I want complete freedom of time off the hop by being my own boss, think again. I don't believe that is the right motivation going in. Now, naturally, this got me thinking, well, if there's certain things that were obvious that made a business turn out very poorly, what were the things that actually made the right one work? And I mean, that's the tricky part, because it's the intersection of a lot of different things. A lot of things have to overlap in the correct way. But if I think more about not just my experience, but the experience of people I know, I think one of the easiest ways to determine if you should quit your job and maybe start a company is if there's already demand before you started the company. Now, that was the big boon for me when I started my company, Haven, is that there were already 50, 60 people who were actually interested in working with me, and I was recording them in a spreadsheet. Like, I had it all written down. There was demand for what I could provide before I had even bought the name or incorporated my business. And that's what inspired me to start the business, was knowing that from the get-go I was going to have customers. Because at the end of the day, that's all you need to be thinking about when you're starting a company, is can I get that first customer, and can I get the first 10 customers? Because without those, you're essentially really going nowhere. Now, another big factor is being so passionate and excited about the idea that you are willing to work more in the first 5 years, maybe even 10 years worth of work in the first 5 years, so that you can work half as much thereafter. And I alluded to this before when I was talking about the wrong reasons. I think one of the things that really shows a sign that someone's in it for the right reasons is that it doesn't feel like work, it feels like play. And when it comes to, building the website for their company, when it comes to doing the marketing, they're so wrapped up in it and they enjoy it so much that they're willing to just dump in tons of hours to create something that works. And lastly, an important thing that comes to mind for me is the fact that tons of the business owners I know who have become successful young, it was almost an accident in some weird way. And because of that, they didn't go into the business thinking about what it could create. And so my thought here is, if you feel so drawn to start something that you are willing to live in poverty just to do that as your vocation or do it as your business or your job, that's a sign that you should do it. And that's the big thing, is everyone thinks, if I'm gonna start a company, it has to be successful, and I have to be able to scale it, and I have to be able to have a big exit or get acquired and make a lot of money, because that's the sign of success. But that's not necessarily true, because if you're doing something you absolutely love and you can get by doing it, that's success as well. And you might find that the money aspect of it, although it is important to a certain amount so that you don't feel trapped and you don't feel like you're bankrupt, if you feel liquid, you can keep the collectors at bay, and you can actually live a life where the bills are paid doing something you really enjoy. You kind of start to realize that the money part isn't what you wanted all along. It's the fact that now you have control of your time and you're doing something you actually like. Ultimately, guys, I hope there's something you can learn from my story of kind of having the wrong intentions and working alongside someone who, in retrospect, kind of had the right intentions, and seeing where those two paths ended up and going through the pain of having to live with that and see, what did I do wrong? And having to learn and reflect and go through that and come out on the other side a better person who maybe started something that will last for the long haul. So if you guys enjoyed this video whatsoever, make sure to hit that like button below and hit subscribe to support the channel. And feel free to turn on post notifications for more videos just like this one every single week. Until next time.